My name's Tiana. I worked the night shift at a small, aging hotel just outside New Orleans, the kind of place where time seemed stuck in the 70s and tips were as rare as full bookings. I didn't complain, though. I needed the money, and the job was honest. It was close to 2 a.m. when he stumbled in. Tall. Gray suit, though half his shirt was untucked. His shoes looked expensive, but he was dragging them across the carpet like they weighed 50 pounds each. He leaned on the check-in desk, then promptly slid down it like syrup on a hot plate. "Sir?" I asked, walking out from behind the cafe counter. "You okay?" He didn't answer. Just groaned and muttered something about a woman taking his car and a valet stealing his phone. He smelled like old whiskey and frustration. The front desk guy, Mark, had already gone home for the night, so it was just me. And we didn't have a policy for this kind of thing, no rulebook for how to help a well-dressed stranger slumped on the floor at 2 a.m. I knelt down beside him. "You staying here tonight?" "No room." "Cancelled." "Cancelled it." "Thought I'd be flying to Atlanta," he mumbled. "But I'm not." "She left." I hesitated. There was something sad behind his voice. Something hollow. I helped him to his feet, or at least tried. He was heavy and barely conscious, but eventually, with a lot of muttered curses and slurred apologies, I got him into the back lounge. I made him coffee, gave him a blanket, and stayed there until he fell asleep on the couch. I didn't ask questions. Didn't recognize him, either. Just figured he was another rich guy who hit the bottom of his bottle a little too hard. But the next morning, everything changed. By the time I clocked out the next morning, he was gone. The blanket was neatly folded, the mug rinsed in the sink, and there was a small note left on the cafe counter. "Thank you for not leaving me on the floor. J." No number. No last name. Just J. I figured that was it, a weird blip in the routine. Back to grits, black coffee, and guests who didn't tip. But 3 days later, he came back. It was just after lunch, and the place was quiet. I was wiping down tables when the front door swung open. He stepped in, sober this time, dressed just as sharp, but now alert, and looking directly at me like he had something to prove. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here," he said, walking up slowly. "I didn't get your name that night." "Tiana," I said cautiously, gripping the rag like it was a shield. "You doing okay now?" He smiled, a real one this time, not the broken grin from before. "Better. I owe you for that night." "You don't owe me anything," I replied. "I just didn't want the hotel to get sued if you cracked your head on the floor." That made him laugh. He took a seat in the cafe and ordered coffee, black, 2 sugars. Then he stayed. 4 hours. Turned out, his name was Julian. No last name offered again. Said he was in private business, whatever that meant, and that he'd come back just to thank me. But he didn't leave after the coffee. He ordered lunch. Then stayed for dinner. Then booked the best suite in the hotel. Paid in full. Something about it felt off. Not creepy, but unusual. Too polished. Too kind. Later that night, I overheard him on the phone in the lobby. I was passing by to clean up when I heard him say, "Yes. This is the place. You were right. She's the one." I stopped cold. Who was he talking about? The next morning, Julian was already in the cafe when I arrived. He wasn't reading a paper or scrolling a phone. He was just sitting there. Waiting. For me. "Morning, Tiana," he said like we'd been friends for years. I gave a polite nod and tied my apron. "You're up early." He tapped the ceramic mug. "Didn't sleep much." "Been thinking." "About what?" He motioned for me to sit across from him. "You." I paused. My gut said this was the part where things got complicated. But curiosity won, so Saturday, you treated me like a human being that night. You didn't ask for anything. You helped me because it was right. That kind of character, it's rare. I stayed quiet. Compliments make me uneasy. Especially from people who could buy the whole block without blinking. I want to make you an offer, he continued. It's going to sound crazy. Try me, I said cautiously. He reached into his coat and slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a check. A real check. My name was already written on it. The amount? Enough to buy the hotel twice over. I looked up sharply. Is this some kind of joke? No joke, Julian said calmly. I own the holding company that leases this place. I was in town to sign papers, maybe sell it off. But now, I want to give you something better. I stared at him, stunned. You want me to buy the hotel? I asked. He shook his head. No. I want to give it to you. I actually laughed. Why? You don't even know me. He leaned in, eyes steady. You remind me of someone I once loved. Someone who built her life from nothing, just like you're doing. And I made her a promise, that if I ever got a second chance to help someone like her, I'd do it. I looked at the check again. My hands were trembling. This didn't feel real. Not at all. But it was about to get even more unbelievable. I tucked the check back into the envelope and slid it toward him. Things like this don't happen, Julian. Not without strings. He smiled softly. You're smart to ask that. Then be straight with me, I said. What's the catch? Julian nodded. Fair. Here it is. I'll transfer full ownership of the hotel to you, building, land, licensing, everything. But there are two conditions. Here it comes, I thought. First, he said, you don't sell it for at least 5 years. I want this place to mean something, not just be flipped for profit. That's fair, I said slowly. And the second? He paused, then looked around the empty cafe, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You hire people like you. People who show up when no one's watching. People who've been passed over, underestimated, ignored. I want this place to become a chance for them. Like it became one for me once, too. I blinked. You used to work in a hotel? Long time ago, he nodded. Before the suits. Before the boardrooms. It was quiet between us for a while. The hum of the fridge, the clink of a coffee spoon. I stared down at my worn shoes, thinking about how many shifts I'd worked here, how many times I'd been invisible, just a girl in an apron, scraping by. Now this man wanted to hand me the keys. You really trust me with this? I finally asked. Julian gave the smallest nod. I trust what I saw that night. Most people walk past a drunk stranger. You sat with him. I stood up slowly, unsure if I was dreaming. I don't have the education to run a place like this. Then we'll teach you, he said simply. I've already arranged for a private consultant to train you, if you say yes. My voice cracked when I spoke. Okay. Julian smiled. Then let's get the paperwork started. And just like that. I wasn't a waitress anymore. The papers were signed within days. Julian moved fast, lawyers, deeds, accounts. By the end of the week, my name was officially on every document tied to the hotel. The same building where I used to scrub floors after closing. I now owned it. But owning and understanding were two very different things. That first morning, I stood behind the front desk, no apron, no coffee pot, just holding a clipboard, trying not to panic. Julian didn't stick around. He said he'd already done what he came to do. Before leaving, he handed me a business card for a woman named Grace, the hotel consultant he mentioned. Call her, he said. She'll help you figure it out. I did. And Grace was a force of nature. By the end of the first week, she'd trained me on everything from bookings and maintenance budgets to staffing schedules and local permits. She didn't care that I had no formal education in business. She said I had something better, real experience with people. I started making small changes. The dusty lobby chairs, reupholstered by a local craftsperson I used to serve coffee to. The front desk, now manned by Marcus, a guy who'd applied 3 times before and never even got a callback because he didn't wear a tie. Housekeeping. I gave one of the shifts to a single mom who lived across the street and used to work nights at a laundromat. Within a month, guests noticed. The online reviews doubled. Then tripled. Word spread, there's something different about this place. And there was. Because it wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was mine. But one afternoon, about 5 weeks in, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot, tinted windows, no plates. Out stepped a man in a charcoal suit I didn't recognize. He walked in, looked around slowly, and asked the front desk one question: "Is the new owner here?" I was in the back office checking inventory when Marcus knocked lightly on the door. "Tiana," he said with a nervous look, "there's someone here asking for you. Says he's from Central Holdings." I stood up, confused. Julian didn't say anything about another visit. Marcus shrugged. "Looks serious." I stepped into the lobby, and the man was already waiting for me. Tall. Sharp. Clean-shaven with a stare that could freeze boiling water. He held a leather folder under one arm and gave me a tight nod. "Ms. Carter?" he asked. "Yes. My name is Everett Pierce. I oversee property acquisitions and internal audits for the parent company. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Julian Hart." That's when it clicked. Hart. Julian Hart. Not just some wealthy businessman. He was the Julian Hart, founder of Hart Properties, one of the biggest privately owned hospitality companies on the East Coast. And I'd helped him off the floor like he was just another drunk. Everett opened the folder and pulled out a stack of documents. "Mr. Hart asked me to deliver this final file. It includes the updated licensing, your tax filing setup, and confirmation of full title transfer. Effective as of yesterday, the hotel and all attached assets are yours, unencumbered." I took the folder with shaking hands. "But, why all of this?" I asked. "Why me?" He gave the faintest smile. "Julian does this from time to time. He believes in watching people when they think no one is watching them. You impressed him." Then his tone turned serious. "There will be attention soon. Journalists, property scouts, maybe even investors. People will start asking questions once they find out what happened here." I blinked. "So what do I say?" He shrugged. "That you earned it." And with that, he left. I stood in the lobby, the same lobby I used to mop at midnight, now holding a file that confirmed everything was real. I wasn't just the owner on paper anymore. I was the one responsible for its future. And I intended to make every inch of it count. 2 months after I became the owner, a letter arrived. It was handwritten, thick paper, no return address, just a small gold seal on the back with the initials JH. I opened it carefully. Inside, in clean, elegant handwriting, was this: "Tiana, I stayed in room 207 that night. You probably don't remember, but that used to be my father's favorite room. He died in that hotel before I ever made my first million. He was a janitor. Worked quietly. Nobody noticed him much. He taught me that success doesn't come from shouting louder, it comes from showing up, day after day, even when no one claps for you. That's what I saw in you. That's why I chose you. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask what I could do for you. You just helped. This hotel is no longer just a building. It's a story now, your story. Make it count." Keep your doors open to those who deserve a shot. And if you ever find someone worth betting on, pass it forward. Julian Hart. I read that letter 3 times. Then I walked to room 207 and stood in the doorway for a long while. The room was quiet. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, warming the carpet. Nothing special about it, and yet everything about it felt sacred. That night, I framed the letter and hung it behind the front desk, right where everyone could see it. Today, the hotel isn't just busy, it's thriving. We hold workshops for first-time workers. We host free job fairs in the lounge once a month. Every desk, every hallway, every room has purpose now. And people ask me all the time, how did Waitress end up owning the place? I just smile and say, sometimes, helping someone up off the floor, lifts you higher than you ever imagined. A year later, the hotel held its first anniversary under new ownership. We didn't throw a gala or anything fancy, just a quiet gathering in the cafe, the same place where everything started. Staff, neighbors, and a few former guests who had become friends filled the room with laughter, jazz, and the smell of fresh beignet. I stood near the back, watching it all. Marcus was now the assistant manager. Miss Lena, the housekeeper who used to juggle 2 jobs, ran our entire cleaning crew. Even the front desk had 2 trainees from the local community college shadowing for internships. The hotel had become more than a workplace. It was a second-chance factory. And then, just before closing, a woman walked in. Late 50s. Wore a dark green coat and held a small gift bag. She looked around the room slowly, then locked eyes with me. "Are you Tiana?" she asked. "I am." She handed me the bag. "I was asked to give this to you. He said you'd understand." Inside was a photograph. It showed a much younger Julian Hart, maybe 20 years old, mopping the very lobby I now owned. His uniform had a tear in the sleeve, and he was smiling at the camera, a mop in one hand and a bucket in the other. On the back, written in black ink, "All stories begin on the ground floor. Keep climbing. J.H." I looked up, tears stinging my eyes, but the woman was already gone. No one ever saw Julian Hart again. Not in person. But his story, and mine, lived on in every corner of that hotel. Room 207 was turned into a quiet reading room with a plaque that read, "For those who see people, not positions." And every time I hand over a paycheck to someone who thought they'd never be given a chance. I remember the night I helped a stranger off the floor, and how, in doing so, I stood up for my own future. It was a slow, rainy night nearly 2 years after the hotel became mine. Most of the guests were already in their rooms. I was in the cafe alone, closing up and wiping tables like I used to, more out of habit than need. That's when I saw him. A young man, couldn't have been more than 20, soaking wet, standing just inside the front door. He looked exhausted, lost, like the world had kicked him too many times and he'd stopped kicking back. I walked over. "You okay?" He hesitated. Didn't know where else to go. I was supposed to have a job lined up. My ride bailed, and my phone's dead. I just need a place to sit down for a bit. I'll leave in the morning. His voice trembled when he said it. I smiled gently. "Come on in. Coffee's fresh." He blinked, surprised. "You don't want ID or money?" I shook my head. "I want you to dry off and have something warm." He sat slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't used to kindness. I brought him a towel and poured a hot cup of coffee. Then I took a seat across from him, just like I once had with Julian, and listened. And somewhere in the middle of his story, I realized something. This wasn't just about helping him. It was a moment. The kind of moment Julian had given me. And now, it was my turn to pass it on. Later that night, after he fell asleep on the lounge couch, I walked into the back office, pulled out the spare employment forms, and left them on the desk for morning. Because maybe, just maybe, Another chapter was beginning. And it was my honor to help write it. 6 months later, that young man, his name was Elijah, stood behind the front desk in a clean button-up shirt, greeting guests with the same warmth I once gave with a rag in my hand and an aching back. He was sharp. Quick to learn. The kind of person most would have overlooked because he didn't have the right shoes or the right story. But I saw something in him. The same thing Julian must have seen in me. We turned the old maintenance room into a study lounge. Set up evening classes for staff who wanted to finish high school or work towards something bigger. Even got a small grant to build an outdoor space for job training and interviews. And every now and then, I'd catch a guest standing quietly in the lobby, staring at the framed letter from Julian. Some asked about it. Others just nodded, as if they understood without needing the full story. Truth is, it was never about the building. It was about what we built inside it. One night, after all the lights were out and the doors locked, I sat in room 207 again. I lit a small candle, placed the original envelope with Julian's handwriting on the nightstand, and wrote a short message in the guest book we kept in that room now. To the next person who finds their way here, don't wait for the world to notice you. Be the reason it stops and turns around. I signed it with one word, Tiana. Because names change. People come and go. But kindness? Kindness echoes. And the hotel? It keeps listening.